Welcome to Have Responsible. Robert here. I check in a hotel out of town and I'm shocked because of what I hear the room next door. It is the owner of the hotel that happens to sleep there because he's coming also from out of town. And the entire night, the whole room sounds like an engine, like there is something that is vibrating there and it doesn't sound like it's a human. And I'm sorry because that's what sounded to me. The man was snoring like a tractor. And the entire night, you could tell this person barely slept. And even if they probably were unconscious sleeping, they were having these moments where they are breathing, then there is silence, and then a few seconds later, the engine of snoring goes back up again and then calms down. The following morning, I was not surprised when I looked at the man because he belongs to a class. Yes, he belongs into this class that is called middle class. You know, here is what tells you that people have joined the middle class. That's why it's called the middle class. Whether that's from the pizza or from the burger or from Mutura, it's still middle class. And the man, the poor man, was basically being strangled in that class by himself, not anybody else. And this is quite sad because when we graduate from being middle class, we become full class. We pile up the weight everywhere. And I will say that because basically we are killing ourselves with fast food and we are going to places trying to get this weight off. And what are we doing? We are drinking 32 teaspoons of sugar in some green packaged juices, and we are eating burgers and pizzas and fatty food and starches all day. And we are trying to go to gyms and these other places to get rid of it. But what we are doing, we're strangling ourselves. And how are we strangling ourselves? When we gain too much weight, when we sleep, I'll just simply put it this way. The stuff on the inside, whether that's your tongue or your palate, they fall backward and they close your airways, and the weight here is pushing on your airway, is pushing on the breathing pipe. And that's why that sound of snoring, it is air that is trying to get through on a space that is closed. That's all we need to understand. We don't need to go to a medical class to understand that. So it is air that it should have gone into you to help you sleep calmly because, it is resting time. But you were having little air that is going into you because the pipe is closed. You're strangling yourself at night. And over time, from what is called obstructive sleep apnea, that obstruction that creates enough blockage of air getting in to the point where your brain basically gets into these moments where you quit breathing for a time during the night. And when I say for a time, if you think that every 10 seconds of every minute at night you are not breathing because you have developed that sleep apnea from the weight, either from that obstruction, and that obstruction has developed itself into sleep apnea where you're not breathing for moments of the night, 10 seconds every minute. And if you think about it, if you're not breathing 10 seconds every minute for an hour, how many seconds are those? How many minutes are those? Multiply that by 8 hours or 10 hours, however much time you sleep. Is that how much you're going through the night without breathing? And yes, this is not a diagnosis I'm giving you. It is a description so you can understand exactly what that weight does to you. And over time, and I hope somebody can do the calculations for me. 10 seconds every minute for 8 hours when you're not breathing. How much time have you gone through the night without breathing? And for a year, how much time during that sleep that you went without breathing? That obviously takes a toll on your body, on your vascular system, on your heart. And the first thing that happens is that when the heart is trying to compensate this by beating a little bit faster to be able to circulate the little oxygen that is coming in because your pipe is closed, is strangled by yourself. by the weight that you put on with fast food, that is what is happening. And the heart is going to try to pump a little bit faster. And over time, that converts into a rhythm we call atrial fibrillation. And again, we are not diagnosing you here. We are describing things so you can understand where we end up strangling ourselves in middle class. And atrial fibrillation always turns into a stroke. And this is how. It is basically the atrium, the two chambers on the top that are quivering. They are literally beating so fast. They have not enough time to empty themselves, to squeeze the blood out to the other to the ventricles to be pushed out. So blood stagnates there. And remember, and if you didn't know how you do, every time blood does not move, it forms a clot. It clots. And when one clot starts forming, it encourages other clots to form alongside it. And lo and behold, if this clot is forming on top of those chambers, and let's say it's on the left side, it will dislodge, it will move, and it's not going to affect the heart. It's going to move, and most of the time, 80% of the time, moves to your head, and right there, you have a stroke. So where did this come from? It came from, we are eating like the Americans. We are eating burgers, pizzas. We are drinking sodas. If you go to Nachafua Meza with, drinks, juices and sodas, and we are eating right. And over time, we belong to the middle class. We belong rightfully into that middle class. And over time, we belong to the full class. The full class where you get into spaces like I did, and the snoring tells you that this person is strangling themselves at night. And they do not know that. Unless their partner or their family members tell them that you snore at night, they do not know. One of the things that happens is that they wake up tired. They are dozing off in the middle of the day. Why? Because they did not sleep enough. And part of it is they have body aches. Why? Because they were doing with less oxygen. It's almost like literally they were running where they have oxygen deficit and they have to catch up with that oxygen during the day. Why? Remember, there is a time for every 10 seconds. For every minute, there is probably a 10 seconds where they were not breathing. And obviously, it's going to vary from one person to person. There's a person who's going to be quitting breathing for 5 seconds. They have seen people go for as long as 25 seconds without breathing. That's how bad their sleep apnea had become. And it's not their sleep apnea. It is their brain adapting to their eating well. To their eating well, to being middle class and being in full class. And these people strangled in class, strangled by themselves, and strangled in middle class, strangled in full class, strangled because we ate right, strangled because we ate like the Romans. If you study the Romans, then you know how they're dying. And I've written an entire book called Dollar Altar, where people are sacrificed on the altar of the dollar. The fast food, if you look at all the people should we start with Kentucky, where some of your fast food is coming from? I say some of your food because you're not going to see me there. If you look, I think 60% of all the people in Kentucky, I think it's 70%, when I was writing the book, it was 60%, are obese or overweight. That's the same with Alabama. That's the same with Tennessee. So all these southern states where I think the soda company is headquartered in Georgia, the southern states, and that's where you're going to find a lot of, unfortunately, people that look like Goliath. And I am sorry for being direct. I'm describing what I see, and I'm describing it so that we can be able to save ourselves from becoming a nation that is strangling itself at night, strangling itself because we are eating right, and we are piling weight because we are eating right, right? Sounds like I'm rapping. Sleep apnea from obesity and heavy overweightness, being overweight, that converts into atrial fibrillation, that makes the heart quiver at the top where it does not completely empty itself, and then a clot forms, and that clot goes and into the brain, and as it is passing through because the pipes are big, but as it gets closer and closer to the brain, the pipes are getting smaller and smaller, and it's get to a place where it can't move anymore because the clot is too big for the pipe, and right there blocks all the blood flow to that dependent place, and right there you have a stroke. From what? A very simple process. A process that was not painful, but a process that came to you because of, for the most part, because of what we are putting into our mouth. And yes, you're going to tell me, yes, there are people whose weight has nothing to do with food. Yes, it could be other things, but we are speaking of ourselves when we have gained so much weight and belong to that middle class because of what we're putting in our mouth. We are going to meet, this middle class is going to meet in rehabs, as we are trying to rehabilitate the hand that died simply because of a stroke, and not because of a stroke he can back up because of what we are eating. And do we want to meet there? Do we want to strangle ourselves at night? Do we want to have strokes that came because of because we're eating well? And because of kids, literally you're hearing kids snoring at 13, at 11 because of the weight, and we're saying we are eating right. Now, by the time they are 19, they're going to have atrial fibrillation because they develop sleep apnea from the obstruction that is because of the weight, and then they have a stroke at 21. Why? Because we are eating right, or we are eating like the Romans, and we will die like the Romans. Hopefully this changes someone's life from being strangled in class. My name is Robert. I've written a book called Dollar Altar that speaks about this. You can find that in Nuria, and that's available globally. If you're abroad, you can get that from Amazon. This is AfResponsible. This is the sound of preventive medicine. This is AfResponsible. Africans being responsible. Have a good day.